Hi, I'm Sarah West. Thank you for attending Black Moon Lilith today. I'm going to jump right into one of my volunteers because of her schedule today. So we're going to talk with Amanda first about her chart and her Black Moon Lilith transits, so we can get some perspective there, and then jump into the actual content, and the back end will have August. So I wanted to let you know about that. So here we go. Let's see here. Hold on one second. Okay, everybody can see that okay? All right. So this is Amanda's chart. We can see her Black Moon Lilith is at 23 degrees Virgo, 45 minutes. And so I jumped into into the ephemeris and looked at dates that Jupiter and Saturn and other planets were aspecting this either by conjunction, square, or opposition, or my primary focus for Amanda. So looking into the childhood, we didn't have very much in the very early parts that she could remember, but we do have in around June, December of 1984. We have, let's see here, what was going on. There is an event there. Do you want to share, Amanda, what was going on in 1984?
Yeah, that was the time when my parents actually split up. And so my mom took my brother and I and moved out of state so that we could be closer to her family while they went through that process.
Right. So this is kind of the early beginnings of Black Moon Lilith being experienced from the parent's perspective. And as I'll discuss later, there's themes of a 9-point process that we go through in the archetype. And during this in between of 1984, right before that, in the end of December 23rd, 1983, transiting Jupiter in Sagittarius would be squaring her Black Moon Lilith. So that would be the increasing tension from Sagittarius to the Virgo in the mutable. So just kind of tuck that in there so you're aware of that. And then Jupiter was trine in Capricorn to the Black Moon Lilith in Virgo in January of 85. And so there was some change because you were only separated for those months, right? June to December, and then things changed again, moving into 85.
Right.
So what happened in 85? Now June is now, Jupiter is now trine in January of 85. And I think you're 5 years old about this time?
Mm-hmm.
And so what's going on here?
I don't. Did we talk about something specific for that? I don't remember that time period.
If you have the notes, this I think is your mom is recognizing your dad's behaviors.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
She was noticing that he was really becoming possessive and jealous, and their marriage was still they were trying to work through those themes to see if they could make it work.
Right. And so, as we'll later learn, with her mom hitting her max on this kind of behavior exchange with Amanda's father, there's this asserting of her equality, the issue of to the domination, or someone trying to edit us, or your mother's stealing this tension. And then there's the flight and separation that happened before, but we're come back into the mix, and this is going on. So so all of these themes are going on. And then Jupiter transits to an opposition via Pisces, so it's opposite the Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. In July of 1986, Jupiter does station retrograde at 22 degrees 51 Pisces, so it's sitting very close to the opposition at this time in July of 86. So what happened a little bit earlier in 86? This is
in May of 1986, my father actually died very suddenly.
Mm-hmm. And with that situation, Jupiter was on the 8th house cusp, which is opposite Lilith and Saturn, within 4 to 6 degrees. But we also have natal Neptune in Sagittarius, ruler of Jupiter in the 5th house, which is kind of acting as a T-square situation at during this period of time. and of course the sensitivities of that as Jupiter then progresses through the 8th house is the grief and all of that as processing the father passing away. So Saturn transiting Sagittarius is going to be going through the end of the 4th house and into the 5th. 1987, March 31st, 1987, Saturn stations retrograde at 22 degrees Sagittarius. So it's kind of sitting right on that point with Neptune. Now it's squaring the black moon Lilith again from Virgo, and that stellium you got going on there. And the exact square in December 17th of 87. And this was also a big change for you as a child. When you want to share with this
Right,
move?
so more separation there because we moved out of the small town that I'd been born in and then to a larger city.
Okay, so we have the actual moving, the getting away from the situation. You had noted in your sharing there was some scandal around the father's
No, there's a
passing.
lot of scandal around my dad's death, and as that got revealed, my mom thought it would be better to move us out of that town.
Yeah, so taking that action to control her environment and the environment of her children. Okay. Moving forward in time, we're going to jump up to 1995. Your Saturn in Pisces, your transiting Saturn is in Pisces. Excuse me. Opposite the the Black Moon Lilith from the Virgo, June 1 of 95. But Saturn also is retrograde in stationary July 6th of 1995 at 24 degrees Pisces. So it's very close in opposition here. So it's kind of holding energy on that. So it's pretty solid and tight orb. So it's pretty tight all the way from May, June, July, August, September, and October of 1995. And this is also while Uranus and Neptune are in Capricorn, that conjunction in the late degrees are in a trine to the Virgo energy, so the Earth quality there, June through October. So kind of add that in there to understand this mix. And you're 15 years old at this time.
Mm-hmm.
You noted that you were in high school, and there's something the throat surgery. Yeah.
Right. This was kind of the first in a series of surgeries and broken bones that seemed to align with these transits.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to have surgery on the back of my throat.
Okay. Oh, was there you mentioned something with the anesthesia?
Oh, right. The anesthesiologist had been on sabbatical for 6 months and failed miserably at finding a vein to get the anesthesia to go into, and then ended up dumping it all into my arm instead of my veins.
Oh gosh. So a tricky time there. And then recovery period after that surgery and so forth. Okay, now we're going to jump into adulthood. So we had a little bit of insight from some childhood experiences that definitely have the themes of Lilith playing out with the mother's life and the father's life kind of relationship, and how you're touching into that as a child, and also the body health matters that come in at that time. So jumping into adulthood in 2001, Jupiter is square from Gemini, and Gemini I think is in your 11th, yeah, for this point, this degree point, in Virgo. So June 15th, 2001, Black Moon Lilith in Virgo, excuse me, squaring this. And this is where you kind of tune into the world. Can share some?
Right. I just remember like June 9th of that year, laying on a couch at a friend's house and seeing a bunch of turmoil going on in the Middle East, and really having a acute awareness that the world was getting worse and was going to keep getting worse, and that I had to figure out what my part was in that.
Mm-hmm. Acutely aware of the dynamics. A lot of shadow energy at that time for sure with the Gulf War. Yeah. Also in September 2001 was a significant point for you as a sibling. Brother?
Yeah, that was right about the time that my brother, you might be thinking of the 2005 one, but right about that time was when my brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Right, that's the one I was thinking of, the
Yeah.
diagnosis. I also wanted to mention that Pluto was in Sagittarius at this time, also squaring the Virgo. So there's kind of a lot of energy in there related to the mutable for the Black Moon Lilith and Pluto as well. Moving forward in time, we have Saturn in Gemini in July of 2002, January of 03. It's squaring Black Moon Lilith from Gemini in that time period, and also April of 2003. So uh, Saturn does station retrograde February 22nd, 03 at 22 degrees. So there's like extra energy emphasis at that time when Saturn stations in the sky like that. So July 5th, 6th, 2002, right around that first square, you're visiting Tucson. What happens?
Yeah, I was visiting Tucson and I ended up getting stuck there and having to have emergency back surgery and spent until about April or May of 2003 recovering from that.
So you were stuck there for a while.
It was.
Literally. So this kind of to me emphasized the Virgo, because we have a lot of the body involved and sign of being on the second house cusp, but also that when Saturn is in the mix and Saturn rules the bones, there's this kind of challenge at hand with your herniated discs at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Moon Lilith, in a way, is playing out through your body in some ways here. So Pluto then in Sagittarius reaches the exact square to Black Moon Lilith in February of 2005, the first and second. And then there's retrograde periods in here. It stations retrograde March 24th, 04 at 22 Sagittarius, and it stations retrograde March 27th, 2005, and exact again on May 23rd of 05, and then exact again on December 1st of 05. So we definitely see at the end of this transit a very critical moment in your life on December 9th. Can you share that?
So that was when my brother committed suicide after living with schizophrenia for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. So, but otherwise, you had mentioned before that event, the rest of 2005 seemed to be going quite well for you.
Pretty great. Yeah.
Creative, self-expressed in that time.
I was having a lot of fun.
You said chosen to commit to live in Seattle and that at that time as well.
Right.
And you're like, how is this my life? And then things changed dramatically at the end of the year. So,
right.
So you'd also mentioned as a part of this conversation around this particular point in time and these archetypal energies present, that this is where you're registering, maybe just from in the reflection moment, that Saturn in Virgo opposite Venus in Pisces is really core to the emotional trauma experiences of your life, and how you understand and unfold that for yourself when you're evolving through your growth. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the Saturn, Venus, Neptune, Black Moon, Lilith, T-square is just as core to my karmic story as the Uranus square the nodes. Mm-hmm. And having to unravel that's been done before the Uranus square the nodes work in a lot of ways.
Right. Okay. And I think that's really important to point out, because you have multiple signatures and you're having to unfold them. And mm-hmm. Black Moon Lilith here is very strong as a part of one of them, and how you look at that for your own reflective work and what you do for yourself as you unfold that in your evolving growth. Okay, so then Uranus, which is the key planet in your chart, is opposite Black Moon Lilith in Pisces in April of 2009, but it does station in retrograde a little bit earlier in June 27th, 2008 at 22 degrees Pisces. So it's sitting very close in 39 minutes, and it reaches the exact on April 2nd, 3rd, and 9th of 2009. So again, in October of 09, Uranus goes retrograde, goes over the 2345 of Pisces to the exact opposition October 10, 11, 2009 and forward again. in January of 2010. So um, this was a period of high restlessness, but you had a lot going on higher education wise too. Can you share that? What began in October?
Yeah, so like October 3rd or so of 2009 was when I started my grad school program, which was letting me merge depth psychology and astrology. And I think that my Saturn return was pretty exact then too. I think
That's correct. Yeah, you were talking about that. You told me when we were talking that this is moving towards your Saturn return at this age. About
right.
So this Uranus opposite Black Moon Lilith is kind of emphasizing what your values are. You're actually taking the time to invest in what you care about, and this is emphasizing that values piece of the second house.
Right.
Okay, and then excuse me. 2010, we're going to jump a little forward. Jupiter again in Pisces, opposite Black Moon Lilith. So it goes on May 1st, 2010, but a little bit later in the year, Jupiter stations retrograde on November 18th at 23 degrees Pisces, and the opposition exacts on December 1st of 2010. So this is your first year in grad school, right?
That was the beginning of the second year.
Oh, beginning of the second year. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
We also have from our conversation, I'm not going to go into it, but we definitely have an event that's Dark Moon Lilith type in the November timeframe of 2010. But I want to just make note of it, but not go into the detail. And then at the same time, Uranus is at 26 degrees Pisces, also a part of this configuration for the sensitivities of late 2010. So going forward into, we're going to go back a little bit with 2009. Saturn conjunct Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. This is near your Saturn return. So we go kind of back and realize that this is when you were starting grad school. So that's kind of reiterating that detail about putting your duty and discipline and focus into your higher education and what you value. Mm-hmm. Jupiter is conjunct Black Moon Lilith in Virgo January of this year. It's stationed retrograde on it, and it was exact on, 2016, sorry, last year. And then exact on August 15th of 2016. So we have Jupiter again conjunct, so it's in Virgo. So this is a point in time where you notice your first relationship and some tell us about that relationship, that particular one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of times when I'm looking at second house Black Moon Lilith, it's talking about body insecurity or self-loathing issues, and I've never really experienced that a lot until August of last year when I was in a relationship that just seemed to constellate a whole bunch of self-loathing and body image issues, and it was quite uncomfortable.
So that relationship brought that stuff to the surface for you to work on and pay attention to and start the healing process with that.
Yeah.
So that was very recently. And then Venus in Gemini was square Black Moon Lilith. So from the 11th house to the second house this year, right now. So right now, on today and yesterday, Black Moon Lilith, Venus is square the Black Moon Lilith for you. You shared an interesting, but we also have Saturn and Sag right now, which is also square. Yeah. So you have this interesting musical cross going on in your chart. So share with what's going on with you right now.
Well, on one level, everything's great, but on another level, I'm seeing a doctor tomorrow to talk about an impending surgery. So that theme's coming back again.
Oh, that theme, resurface theme. Yes. Okay. So just looking back a little bit from the nodes perspective, 2016 in January, North Node was conjunct your Black Moon Lilith. And then the South Node was conjunct that in November 10 of 2006. And 2006, you said, was the period of time of recovery, grief from your brother's loss.
Yeah.
And also the grief for your mom, very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But good side of life, more sexual partners, so expressing yourself in that way at that time. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of a mix of life. And you
Mm-hmm.
said, I think the relationship came in March. Was that of '06 or was that of 16?
16.
Okay, so that was the North Node. Interesting. So that's a North Node relationship, opening that up and revealing that as well. So what's interesting to see across these experiences that Amanda has had with the
Sarah, I have to go.
That's okay. You can
Yeah.
go. I'm
Thank
just
you.
going to continue talking. Thank you, Amanda. What I wanted to point out across these experiences that Amanda has had is, you know, identifying what I'm going to later talk about as we jump in here into the content about the stages of the archetypal process and how we start to unfold what Lilith is for us and how we embody her in a healthier way. So I'm going to go backwards in my slides here if I can do that. Bear with me here for a second. I got to jump to the beginning. Okay. You all that okay? So jumping into the content around this, I want to focus on the Black Moon Lilith from some information from our Evolutionary Astrology community. I pulled some points out from, excuse me, the EA glossary. So this is where I got this detail. Excuse me. So the Black Moon Lilith is the resolution to the other two Liliths, the original women. And Black Moon Lilith correlates to Hecate. I think I said that right. That's from Jeffrey. Kristen then also adds, Black Moon Lilith shows how and where we cut away our pretensions, false roles, and delusions, and actualize who we essentially are. The Black Moon Lilith has a 9-year cycle, is the resolution where, the resolution where one's distorted image may be transformed into a natural, healthy expression. She also notes that Lilith is the natural wild woman in the birth charts of the moon. Hold on one second, I can't see all that. The moon and the nodes must be incorporated into the interpretation as well as Venus. And she also says Black Moon Lilith symbolizes our way to get back to our original root, hence the word resolution. I want to add on to this, and I didn't type them up into the slides, but I just want to read something here. It's the detail from Kristen. So she's like, the dark goddess's crescent-shaped knife cuts away all that is not authentic in our lives. The enforced clarity of the Black Moon allows us to penetrate to the essence, eliminating all things that are unnecessary, false, and impure. Whenever you find the resolution Lilith in your chart, it represents an area where it will take tremendous courage, where you can release the repressed anger from lifetimes and be set free. It is also an area of transformation. Creative energy of the feminine goddess pours into you. Stressful aspects between Black Moon Lilith and Mars, the planet that most clearly expresses the masculine power, may indicate that a woman's independence and confidence is threatened or met with opposition by men. Her own inner male is not strong. Women who have hard aspect from Black Moon Lilith to the moon or in the 5th house may have problems with pregnancy and childbirth, possible miscarriage, unwanted pregnancy, or a fear of motherhood. Oftentimes, transiting Black Moon Lilith can bring back feelings of emotional pain, but only if it is in the area where you have compromised your primal nature. Lilith forces us to look at ourselves with utter naked emotional honesty. And that was from Kristen out of the EA glossary. What I want to add here, just after we listened to the life experiences of Amanda here, is understanding the emotional pieces of this, what Kristen's talking about here, and that it's working out kind of through her body And so it's healing that relationship with the body, that primal nature. And I just want to kind of point that out so you can kind of see the correlation here. Let's see here. I talked about the original root. She also says, Kristen also points out, the resolution Lilith, which is Black Moon Lilith, lights the way back to our true feminine self. She shows you how to get back home to your unwavering center. And working with this Lilith, the Trinity is powerful exercise when you weave it into the Pluto paradigm, especially considering that Lilith is the octave transformer between Pluto and Mars. Once any soul uncovers and remembers how they were originally designed, the Mars piece can be adjusted, as in choices made, that can now facilitate evolution. It works like a tuning fork. When any soul is in harmony with their pure self, the weight of whatever has been collected will start flying off. So in the EA glossary, there's a little note that Lilith is the wisdom of the natural world, natural expression, and the higher octave, Pluto, lower octave is Mars. And Mars is personal desires acting for Plutonian individual collective evolution. Personal desire to act for the collective interest. So you can kind of see that detail there. For traditional insight, I go to Demetra and her excellence on the subject. Lilith, portrayed as the goddess of the night who tames the wild beasts, represents the principle of repressed anger and conflict resolution. This is in her Asteroid Goddesses book. A prominent Lilith displays the quality of personal independence and refusal to submit to another or compromise one's beliefs, as well as the potential for resolution. Stressful placements of Lilith point to the perception of the feminine as the evil, the vamp, potential rape and sexual abuse, especially when aspected to Taurus or Saturn, or the inability to reach agreement until power issues are resolved. Okay. So I spent a lot of my time for the Black Moon Lilith exploring this book by Tom Jacobs, Lilith Healing the Wild. So a lot of what I'm going to be covering next comes from his book, and I wanted to point that out. A couple of things. First, he teaches us about myth and archetype, and here's some quotes related to that. Myth teaches us how we should behave in order to be acceptable and successful in our given culture and social context. Archetype describes a natural part of who we are and how we are inclined to live if we honor ourselves. And I think that's important. So going into the Lilith archetype, couple of pieces of information here before I go into his stages. So learning to view a myth for what it is, and then learning to retell the story connects us to who we are on the inside. A return to instinct. When healthy, Lilith listens to her body always. Patriarchal thinking aims to control everything, to bring everything under some sort of predictable regulation. Connecting with Lilith is a process of reconnecting with the body as the vehicle for the soul's journey on this plane and reconnecting with the instinctive wisdom it always offers. Aspects of the Lilith archetype include accepting the body as it naturally is and letting it do what it does, honoring and trusting instinct over what one is told or shown, honoring and letting a primal rawness come out, cultivating autonomy and working toward equality in relationship in any way, but especially when it comes to gender roles and the balance between masculine and feminine, active and passive, and willing to leave situations that are not fair or do not work in order to gain, maintain, or reestablish self-respect. These cover different life issues of Lilith within us. They represent threads of the story we may live. We move through the archetypal process in stages, 9 as outlined by Tom Jacobs in his book. Each path is individual, but there is a definite arc of processing the emotional realities of living Lilith stories that we share in common. So we're going to go into the stages as we follow the myth. So here we go. So 9 stages of Lilith Archetype as shared in Tom's book. Number 1 is asserting equality, and I'm going to go a little bit into each of these. So asserting equality, Lilith's story begins in her presenting herself as an equal to Adam. We openly assert equality other times, and other times we assume that we are equals, yet do not have open dialogue about those assumptions. We can get stuck in this stage if conditioned not to think for him or herself or ourselves, and issues with asserting oneself on equality. Most often, it's played out in the family or intimate relationships. Number 2 stage, the second stage, is where we are meeting attempts to dominate or edit us. So when we assert ourselves, we find those in our lives who are not interested in allowing us to think for ourselves as equal, as having a right to speak up, make decisions for ourselves, and so forth. This is where we observe the attempts to dominate or edit us, often when a power differential is present, or self-confidence or strength differences. This is how that can play out. How we respond to such attempts is everything. Anger or objectivity, finding out the why. Attempts to dominate in this stage can be experienced as outright suppression, abuse, or violence of one kind or another. Getting stuck in this stage can occur when we refuse to acknowledge the reality of what is in front of us. Okay, the next one is flight, third stage. Sometimes after we have stood up to someone attempting to edit or control us, we have to leave the dynamic. When flight in this stage is literal, we feel we have to leave where we've been, perhaps where we have felt deeply that we belonged, in order to survive one way or another. In this stage, we need to understand the difficulty that comes with leaving home and going out on our own. Leaving can give us hope. The fear of the unknown is not greater than her faith in herself. Lilith knows she will know what's best and be able to make the decision right for herself. So this is Lilith's flight into the wilderness, her choice. Our own flight needs to be predicated on a deep level of faith in the self. Faith is different than trust. It is rooted inside us at our core. We can get stuck here when the situation is that we leave emotionally and mentally, but not physically. And sometimes we can't leave a situation. We might think, at least this horrible thing I'm living with here is a known. At least I know what to expect. At least I'm familiar with this treatment. We've heard this theme in domestic abuse stories. Navigating this stage will require developing a deep and strong level of self-confidence in order to have faith that we can make it on our own when we need to. It also calls on us to be realistic about our commitments and the sense of loyalty we have to our families and spouses or mates. Compassion for ourselves is imperative as we maneuver this stage. Stage 4, separation. This is when Lilith leaves Adam. We have to know that she experiences the effect of tearing herself away from home is in some way traumatic. She has, after all, left her natural other half. At this point in the archetypal process, it does not matter why she left, only that she has removed herself from the place to and which she knew she belonged. In the myth, it's not discussed the effect of her separation, as the focus is on demonizing her, removing her human nature. In this stage, we don't have time to feel what just happened. We are on the go, trying to figure out our next steps. We are in survival mode, focusing on immediate needs because of the demonizing her for leaving. We are not to believe for a minute that she has the same sort of feeling we could have in this situation. The children Lilith has had with these demons over by the edge of the Red Sea are manifestations of her creativity and sexual freedom. Sometimes for us in this stage, the children are literal, and sometimes they are anything that we've created of our own creative free will. In effect, The evidence and grounds for her autonomy would be wiped out if she returned to Adam. Additionally, there is an element of betrayal at this stage. When angels bring the message to Lilith, she tells them that God would not threaten her in this way because she agreed at his invitation to do an important job on his behalf, watching over and protecting children, when she left Adam, and she agreed. It was a special task and seems to point to her importance with God even as she struggled to decide to leave Adam. The angels tell her this doesn't matter and that she must come back or her children will become mortal and they will die. This betrayal also engenders shock. It became clear that Lilith was truly on her own, not even with the support of God. Her decision to leave Adam is thus not simply leaving her natural other half or mate in her home. It becomes at this stage a decision to leave her God, or we could say a decision to leave her connection to her spiritual self that she had always known and a sense of being supported by that is good in life. We are to believe that we cannot make it on our own without the supports that have existed in our lives to date, even if they do not honor us in the ways that we need. We can get stuck in this stage by remaining disconnected from the reality of what has happened and our feeling about it. Focusing ourselves on the basics of survival that is necessary as we gather and line up resources, sometimes an entirely new living situation is needed. We can also get stuck in this stage when we close ourselves off from the possibility of receiving help and support from others. Navigating this stage, we must marshal our emotional and energetic resources and bring them to bear in the present moment, maintaining consciousness of what has just happened. The fifth stage, rage. The cultural transmission of the Lilith story is that this stage is the end of her journey. She is said to react with rage to the deaths of her children. The myth, as we have received it, says that Lilith then sets out to hurt children and men in order to avenge her children's death and get back at God and Adam for what they have done to her. Suppression of anger, sexuality, seduction are themes here to demonize the natural feminine, natural processes of the male body also. Anger is a natural reaction to the treatment that Lilith and us as Lilith received so far in this story. What has unfolded as a result of the previous stages of the archetypal process. But anger is always rooted in pain, and we need to understand that reacting as Lilith by carrying anger and throwing it at others to avenge wrongs done to us simply perpetuates a cycle of anger and pain. We get stuck in this stage when we meet anger with anger and violence with violence. Only compassion can heal the pain from anger and violence with forgiving and releasing. Navigating this stage well requires we recognize our feeling we have and to commit to doing something constructive with them. We have to turn our anger into something else and choose our next step as something other than engaging in battle with those who have hurt us. We have to ensure that we are not creating meaning that will keep us in pain and inspired to act from anger and hurt others who have hurt us. The sixth stage, grieving and mourning. This is where Tom Jacobs adds on these next four steps as part of the archetypal process of Lilith. Here we begin to rewrite how Lilith's stories work, how they turn out, what we will experience if we allow the natural wild within us room to breathe and be an active, accepted, and loved part of us. At this stage, we must be willing to feel the pain behind the rage of stage 5. We must surrender our identity as victim, oppressed, and downtrodden that we may have developed or picked up along the way. To move the emotional energy required in the grieving process, we must choose to let go of the ideas of ourselves as deserving of abuse and oppression, as well as those that hold feelings of pain that we are carrying, and do all we can to avoid attaching meaning to them, as this will only inspire certain parts of us to react with venom to those who have wronged us. Talking through things here is important if it is done in a spirit of understanding and moving through the feelings to a place of acceptance and compassionate surrender to what needs to be done in the moment to care for the self in order to heal and move on. This stage is the one in which we spend time with the feeling behind the obvious feelings. The sense of loss can be deep and all-consuming at first. And so this stage naturally takes time to move through. Navigating this stage well requires that we first adjust the reality of the feelings, admit to them to ourselves. Then we need to actually feel them and learn to adjust the senses of loss and betrayal that we might have and move through them without attaching victimization related meaning to them. Accepting responsibility, stage 7. We cannot hope to heal anything if we do not take responsibility for what has occurred. This is not to say that we should accept that we are wrong to be who we are and should be punished for it. This instead has to do with understanding the spiritual principle that we draw events, situations, relationships, and dynamics to us that provide us with the experiences that we need in order to learn about what our souls set out to learn during life. Healing as a Lilith figure, it requires that we at some point take responsibility for all that has happened to us, even the most difficult aspects of learning about being a Lilith figure through contentious or abusive family, sexual, and relationship dynamics. This can be extremely difficult, but it is a necessary part of the process. We can become stuck in this stage when we cling to the meaning that our experiences from the past seem to have. If we avoid looking at ourselves as the co-creators of our experience, then we fail to see that what they taught us have been valuable. In this stage of the process, it is time to accelerate our 2020 hindsight and learn in the moment to see the value of the experience that has just unfolded as necessary learning tool for our experiences on Earth. Navigating this stage well rests on withdrawing blame from all those who have hurt us. This can be eased by looking at those people as faces of the divine, just as we are, and accepting that they are trying to learn the right ways to live just as we are. Stage 8, recommitting to what's important. After all that has happened in the process to this point, we have to take some time to get clear about what is important to us. In this stage, we turn to what is happening within us and around us, and we recommit to directing our energies and passions down constructive avenues and toward productive ends. We are now in a position to accept the realities of how Lilith stories unfold in human life, and given all we've learned and know, recommit to what we want to make of ourselves and the world around us. At this stage, we have ideally left behind the judgments of others for being afraid of the wild nature and the feminine, and chosen compassion for the fact that we are all in one way or another trying to deal with the reality of the imbalance between masculine and feminine that has been in effect over the last 6,000 years. Key here is the action of forgiveness in this process. Through forgiveness, we give ourselves permission to become passionate again about who we are and what we have to offer. In stage 8, we need to ensure we have healed the painful experiences from our past that left us feeling oppressed and abused, and come into the present moment to choose again to live as exactly who we are on all levels. We can become stuck in this stage by holding on to a belief that we should not bother trying to be in the world. Another way we get stuck here is to edit what is most important to us for any reason. Navigating this stage well involves ensuring that no anger is floating around in our fields that will prevent us from focusing and redirecting our creative energies as we wish. We have to choose to have faith that our desires and self-conceptions matter, precisely because they matter to us. Success in stage 8 means adhering to total and utter honesty about who we are and choosing to have that faith that since we are here, born on earth and wired the ways we are, there is a purpose that serves the collective and that offers us a chance to do something meaningful with our energy, time, and passion. Stage 9, re-entering the world. In this last stage of the archetypal process, we choose to return to our community, and we choose to find or create a new one for ourselves. We return both healed of past perceptions of oppression and abuse and ready to meet with confidence and compassion others' fear of the wild. Re-entering the world at this stage is a statement that we are ready to deal with the culturally imprinted fear of the wild in proactive, productive ways. In this stage of the archetypal process, we set out to be in the world exactly who we are, without apology and reservation, without shyness, shame, or regret. At the end of the process and that ultimate destination on this journey to recapture and embody Lilith, there is no way to get stuck. Success successfully navigating this stage requires remaining conscious and open, compassionate and communicative, and in touch with who you are as a human and who others are as humans. Living Lilith's energy in healthy ways is a reflection of the beginning of the death throes of the patriarchy as it has existed within you and the world surrounding you. So those are the stages. Whew, I need a breath. Okay, so real quick, Black Moon, Lilith, mean versus true. I like how Tom puts it. There's a couple pages he discusses this, but the mean tends to have a more vague awareness of the Lilith, but the true cuts straight to the core of the Lilith matter. There's an image here of the Black Moon Lilith as it's defined in the moon's orbit around the Earth, and just have some perception around that. Evolutionary astrology, we use the true, and we can see that. I know in Tom's book, he talks about multiple clients has learned that it just gets straight to the matter when he's using the true. He's probably done a lot more readings than I have on the matter, so we'll have to explore that as we go along. So there, if you have any questions on that, let me know. These are the links to Tom's website he's got a nice listing. If you don't have the book yet, you can go here with Lilith and the houses, and also Lilith through the signs. So you can go there if you like. And I'll also put these in the link below the video later. So we're going to jump into August. Hello, August. Are you out there? Here we are. Hello, hello.
Hello, I'm
We
here.
have about 15 minutes or 12 minutes. So let's jump into your information. So August has Black Moon Lilith in the 5th house in Libra. So I'm going to talk about his early life and then jump into adult life. So early on, when he was just a little wee baby, you had your mom had shared a story with you about your grandma. Can you share that with me when you were 1 year old?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents when I was that age as well. And, what my mom had shared with me was right around a little over 1 year old. I was leaving a shopping center with my grandmother, and she was robbed at gunpoint with me. And so that was like, and I was a baby, but I was a witness to the whole thing. And it was, that was something that my mom had mentioned about, is I asked her about some of these dates that you gave me, and that was one of the things that she had mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at this time in 1981, October 20th, Saturn had come up from, excuse me, from your 4th house up to Libra and conjuncted the Black Moon Lilith on October 20th. So it's possible that that's around the time that this is occurring.
Yeah.
And giving you that into your subconscious mind as a child. And also, let's see here, 1992, Uranus is in Capricorn, square Black Moon Lilith by transit, October 92, and August of 92, and January of 92. No, January of probably 93. Sorry, little typo there. And Jupiter was conjunct the Black Moon Lilith in September of 1981. So around this time frame, oh, did I typo that one again? Sorry. So when your father was commuting, what year was that again?
That was in 92.
Oh, that's 90. So I'm going to take away the 1981. Okay, so just the 1992, the Uranus in Capricorn squared the Black Moon Lilith.
Yeah, and that's and during that time, during that 1992, that whole time, my father was we're living in Miami, and my father was commuting to Tampa, which is about 5 hours from Miami, and he would go there for the week and come home on the weekend to work. He was starting a business up there, and he continued. That was an ongoing thing for a few years until he finally, moved to Tampa.
So ultimately, that back and forth then moved into an actual family move.
Yeah, the entire family moved and relocated to Tampa.
Okay, so Uranus on the square, and that's as it's going through your 14th, from the 7th to the 8th, right? So from the square. Adult life. So that's what we have from the early life, right? So I'm going to jump forward. I just realized how messed up my dates are here. Okay, so we're just going to talk from how we talk, okay? So I'm just going to state the time, and we're going to jump kind of forward and then backwards a little bit for the adult life. So most recently, Jupiter was transiting and conjunct your Black Moon Lilith, November 19 of 2016 and July of this year, 2017. And it will also hit it again in November of this year. So this is a current life experience. Tell me about your daughter.
Yeah, well, you know, November 2016 would be pretty significant. I mean, all these, the July one is too, but November would kind of be the kicking off. I have a 3-year-old daughter with whose mother I'm no longer with. We were together for quite some time though, and ended up splitting in 2015 amicably. But there, you know, in 2016, I went through this whole self-discovery where there was like a lot of travel and, you know, there's a lot of moving around and, you know, I had, you know, my business was doing well. So I was able to have a tremendous amount of free time. And for some reason that triggered something in my daughter's mom and my ex, where she got very angry about this freedom that I was having. And she began to get very upset and you know, start doing, you know, to start really projecting a lot of the things that she was feeling about herself onto me. And it was just, you know, like I said, it was that November period where it really, really was the trigger of it, where none of that had ever really been an issue until that period. She began using my daughter more or less like for leverage against me. We were never married, so there was kind of like the time sharing and the custody whole thing that was kind of just verbal between us. And whenever she started to have these feelings is when, you know, she would start restricting access to my daughter and things like that. You know,
Black Moon Lilith is really playing out in the child through the mother, but it's like the child. So it's a literal child, as we were talking about when I was sharing the archetypal process for you in the 5th here with the child, but it's through the mother as well as a part of that archetypal processing, right? So, let's see what's there. Oh, you mention that she left?
Yeah, it was so on July 9th, exactly. Well, let me back up a little bit. In April, I ended up taking her to court because it was just too much. It was really getting out of hand with the things she was doing with my daughter. So I ended up taking her to court to get the custody thing situated. Well, either to get me back or she was angry or whatever, she decided she was going to move to Georgia, and she filed some counter paperwork in the court system in order to move to Georgia. Well, none of that was allowed yet. And exactly on July 9th, she texts me and says, hey, I'm on my way to Georgia and I'm staying, you know, I'm taking Kennedy. You're not going to be able to see her, my daughter. And so, of course, you know, that was not acceptable for me. So I ended up, you know, filing some emergency motions in the court system, and we got an order for her to come back. But it was just that, you know, I mean, it was July 9th to the T, you know, for that one.
Right. So it's kind of interesting because also being in Libra, it's like you're experiencing the Black Moon Lilith through your ex and the daughter child. So the scenarios, all these combinations, and the legal court system is kind of a Libra thing, right? So that's interesting that that's all in the mix here. As unconscious Black, you know, you can see it, but you're also having a period of coming into your own self-discovery and it starts moving for you. So with Jupiter in Libra, especially May, June, and July, conjunct Black Moon Lilith, you're at the courts dealing with the custody issues with her mother. She wants to relocate, so there's that whole separation and the desire to move, to get to leave the situation. And so we have that theme, around that. That she's experiencing, that you're experiencing with her. So all of those seem to be coming online, and yet your awareness through the work that you're doing, the personal evolution work that you've been doing, past life regression, is opening you up and bringing you into a greater consciousness. So you're aware of what's going on and the projections that are happening, and awareness of the feminine shadow in this situation and how it's. So you kind of shared that in reflection, you started to have compassion. Share that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things, initially, when this all began, it was very upsetting, and it consumed my life. I mean, I love my daughter very much. I have two other boys as well, with a different mother that are older, and, we're a close family. Me and my boys and my daughter, we're close. And so when all this happened, it was really heartbreaking and really frustrating, and just really, there was, I was starting to experience some anger. And so I began to reflect, and thank God for astrology as well. I was able to pull her chart and see a little bit about what was going on. And, she's got Chiron at 29 degrees Aries. Uranus is just sitting on top of it right now. And so I was able to reflect on that a little bit and, move into what that would feel like. And, I started to see a pattern with her as well. Like, a lot of the things that she was starting to bring up in court were like, and also project onto me, were her own security and self-worth issues, that she was really projecting. And so when I really moved into that and got away from what she was doing to me, and looked at it from a perspective of that's how she felt about herself, and she was, just projecting these issues, I started to have some really deep compassion for her, because I could really see and feel her pain in the things that she was going through.
Okay. It's interesting because having that ability to see it with these tools, I think, allows a new unfolding for Lilith to be more healthy in the exchange. And you've kind of noticed a little bit of loosening there. I think you mentioned something about FaceTiming with her or something, whatever that thing is.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as
opening, and I think that's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
The healing journey is starting. So,
Yeah.
I think we have like 3 or 4 minutes left, so I'm gonna probably cherry pick through here. Okay. So let's see here. So I'm gonna skip the nodes, okay? Because we talked about the split with the mom of 2015, and that's kind of close in on that. Pluto in transit was square Black Moon Lilith back in 2015. This is where you have the awareness of the breaking down of the relationship with your daughter's mother, but also the power struggles. But you kind of also looked at Pluto moving through your 8th house as part of that power struggles. But I think it's also, Black Moon Lilith in the mix here as well, with that power struggle bit piece, with Pluto square in 15. Well, it's in that, let's see, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then also, and you said grandma passed away, your grandma?
Yeah, my grandmother passed away in late 2015.
Okay. So that was a huge change and period of grief during this time. Saturn was transiting Black Moon Lilith conjunct in Libra in 2010. So we're kind of jumping back 7 years or so. This is when you had a relationship. Tell me about this first loving relationship in December or 2010, and then into 2011 when Saturn is conjunct in Libra.
Yeah, well, prior to that, 2008, I was living in Houston, Texas, for a couple of years. I was working in that area, and I had met and started dating somebody there, and I ended up, it was tough. I had two boys at the time, and it was real tough, commuting back and forth. So I ended up selling that business and moving back to Florida in 2010.
Mhm.
Well, the person that I was dating in Texas, we had become very close, and she ended up following me, actually coming down here to live in Tampa as well. She was like the first relationship that I was ever really felt that close with, really in love with. It was she was very nurturing and caring. But what I learned, this was around my Saturn return as well. But what I had learned here in this relationship, was more about a lot about my Pluto Libra as well. There was some, codependence things playing out in that relationship as well. And I found that, I was, more in love with, the things that she was doing for me, taking care of me and the nurturing and the things like that, rather than her herself. And so, she ended up, she had some alcohol issues. When she moved here, it got really, really dramatic. And we ended up ending that relationship as well when was that? In 2011. It was short lived.
Right.
Once she had came here.
Right.
But yeah, it was yeah.
But it kind of gave you some insights about what you appreciate about the love in that relationship. You kind of really were able to reflect on, this is why I feel this loving, because of the nurturing, but that's what I'm loving about it. I know that she has these things that she needs to handle for herself, for the alcoholism and all that. And I think that kind of, with the Saturn conjunct that, it kind of like the balancing between the desire nature and the love nature, and the challenges the dark feminine is that she's experiencing, that you're noticing, right? Like it's in your presence.
Yeah.
Also, at the same time, August or let's see here, no, March 2011. Your friend from college? No, that was
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
No,
from high school.
Oh yeah, from high school. Oh yeah, okay, sorry, school friend.
Yeah, school
So
friend.
he came visiting you, and this was kind of key for you in 2011, was it not?
Yeah, in 2011, I had a friend. I had started to study a lot about real estate 2011, 2010, and I had a friend call me up out of the blue, who had been living in Vegas for a while, and he called me and said, "Hey, I'm moving back to Tampa. I got tied in with these guys. We're going to do this whole real estate thing. I think you would be a good fit. Come check it out."
Right.
And so I ended up meeting up with them and putting this whole thing, it was a really great collaboration. We all got together, and it was quite a beautiful opportunity, and actually kicked off the next 4 or 5 years for me professionally.
Right. I wanted to bring that one in because Venus rules your Libra of the fifth house. She's sitting in the first. And I thought it was interesting how you had shared that over and over again, you have these um, financial things that kind of drop in your lap, these opportunities. Well, you have to work for it sometimes, to get it rolling. But then it's like these things play out in a way that allow you to do inner work because you have the space. I kind of thought that was interesting to hear in your experiences around that. So going to 2014, so just a few years ago, you have Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter's in your first house transiting, and also into your second house because it's the second house cusp there. So so out of the blue, what happens? This is also a very interesting story.
So yeah, at that time I'm just really starting to go strong with my real estate business, and out of the blue I get a call from a hedge fund out of England that heard about what I was doing here in Florida. We had really developed quite a niche here, and wanted to meet with me. That was in the beginning of September 2013. Was when we actually had this meeting. They actually flew down and, or actually, I'm sorry, it was the end of August. September is when we began. I mean, they literally flew down here, flew to Tampa, met me. We pretty much did a handshake deal. In September, we were going strong.
So right at the point of when Jupiter is squaring the Black Moon Lilith. So huge deal. And then that opens the gates of money, cash flow, and you're going to a retreat in California. And also on the same day, you're signing up for the retreat that you're doing later this year in Egypt, right? Yeah. So it's like the universe is supporting you to take these routes to the inner healing, but also the raising consciousness and being with others in the same way, because that's where you spend your other time, right? Yeah. So we have a few more here, but we are running out of time. So maybe we'll end on that note, unless there's something else you want to add real quick, August.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay. So let me stop share, and it's not letting me stop share. I can't figure out how to stop the share. Oh, there we go. There.
Okay,
So,
thank you so much, Sarah. And
thank you.
would you all please thank Sarah, Amanda, and August?
Thanks, August and Cheryl.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.